Hello and welcome to this short presentation on COBRA availability. Today we will discuss COBRA coverage, who is covered, and how long coverage lasts. COBRA refers to the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1985, which requires most employers with group health plans to continue coverage for employees and dependents after a qualifying event. The coverage provided under COBRA must generally be the same coverage provided to similarly situated active employees. A qualifying event is any one of several specific events that causes a loss of coverage under the employer's plan and triggers COBRA coverage availability. These events are the termination or reduction in hours of a covered employee's employment, the death of the covered employee, or the divorce or legal separation of the covered employee and spouse. COBRA coverage is also available if a dependent child ceases to be a dependent child under the plan, for example, by reaching the plan's limiting age. The covered employee's entitlement to Medicare can also be a qualifying event. However, Medicare entitlement will rarely cause a loss of plan coverage because of Medicare rules. In order for COBRA coverage to be available to a particular individual, that individual must be considered a qualified beneficiary. A qualified beneficiary can be the covered employee, the spouse of the covered employee, and any dependent children covered under the employer's group health plan. The individual must be covered under the employer's plan immediately prior to the qualifying event to be considered a qualified beneficiary entitled to COBRA coverage. The duration of COBRA coverage depends on the qualifying event that triggered coverage. If a termination or reduction in hours occurred, then the COBRA coverage will last up to 18 months. If a qualified beneficiary is deemed disabled within the first 60 days of COBRA coverage, coverage can be extended for a maximum of 29 months for the entire family. For a qualifying event that is a divorce or legal separation, death of the covered employee, or a loss of dependent status, the period of COBRA coverage is 36 months. Keep in mind that coverage can end early in some situations, including where you stop paying premiums or become covered under another plan or Medicare. The individuals who are eligible for COBRA coverage will also depend on the type of qualifying event. Note that each qualified beneficiary has an independent right to elect COBRA. When the covered employee is terminated or has his or her hours reduced, COBRA coverage is available to the covered employee, the spouse of the covered employee, and any dependent children of the covered employee. If the death of a covered employee occurs, COBRA coverage will be available for the employee's spouse and dependent children. COBRA coverage is also available for the employee's spouse and dependent children in the event that the employee and spouse become divorced or legally separated. Keep in mind that the event must cause a loss of coverage for those individuals under the terms of the plan. Many plans terminate coverage only in the event of divorce and not legal separation. You should check with your HR representative if you are unsure of the terms of your plan. In order for COBRA coverage to be available, you will also need to provide notice of the event to your employer. If a dependent child loses dependent status under the plan, for example by reaching the plan's limiting age, COBRA coverage will be available for that dependent child. Loss of dependent status is not a qualifying event for other family members. Notice of the event must be provided to your employer for COBRA to be available. If COBRA coverage is available to you, your spouse, and/or your dependents due to a qualifying event, your employer will provide information on how to elect COBRA, along with information on deadlines for making the election and payments for coverage. COBRA qualified beneficiaries are generally responsible for paying the entire cost of coverage, plus an administrative fee. There are some plans that are not covered under COBRA. COBRA does not apply to small employers, those who normally employ fewer than 20 employees on a typical business day in the preceding calendar year. However, state continuation coverage laws may apply to these small employers. In addition, COBRA does not apply to the federal government's health plan. Those covered by the federal government's plan are covered under the Federal Employee Health Benefits Amendments Act of 1988. Certain church plans are also not subject to COBRA. If you or a family member experience a qualifying event, be sure to contact your employer's Human Resources or Benefits Administrator about your COBRA rights and responsibilities. Keep a record of all of your COBRA correspondence and make sure to stay on top of any deadlines associated with your COBRA eligibility. Thank you for your time today. I hope you found this presentation informative.